If you think great travel requires a huge budget, it really doesn't. We've traveled in Asia, Europe, South America, and all over the United States without overspending and without giving up comfort, good food, or meaningful experiences.
The key isn't necessarily just spending less, it's about spending smarter.
And over the years, we've realized that the people who enjoy travel the most usually aren't the people spending the most money. They're the people who are traveling intentionally.
So today we're going to walk you through how we plan trips almost anywhere in the world without overspending while still having experiences we genuinely love.
Most people plan their trips backwards. What do I mean? They start with a number and then they try to squeeze the trip into that budget. We do the opposite. First, we decide what we want to get out of that trip. For example, do we want to focus on food and wine, culture and history, relaxation, active experiences, or just going someplace new and checking it off our bucket list? Because if you don't define your goals up front, you wind up overspending on things that you don't really value and then not having enough money for the things that you really, really want to be doing to get the most out of your trip so that you'll remember it forever.
And that doesn't mean every trip has to be luxurious. Some of our favorite travel memories were actually very simple. The point is clarity. One of the biggest travel mistakes people make is assuming the most famous place is automatically the best choice. Sometimes it is, but often there are other places that offer an equally amazing experience at a much lower cost. So we constantly ask ourselves, is there a similar destination that's less expensive? Can we avoid peak season? Can we shift timing slightly and save significantly?
For example, we usually travel during shoulder season instead of during peak tourist season. Unless you're traveling for a weather-specific reason, like a ski trip or going to the beach, peak season just often means higher prices, larger crowds, and more stress. We've also traveled during off-season completely and had a wonderful time. We went to Philadelphia in January once and practically had parts of the city to ourselves. We walked right into Independence Hall and got the very next tour. Reading Terminal Market was much, much less crowded and much more enjoyable. Now, obviously, with winter travel, you have to think about weather risks, especially if you're booking non-refundable tickets. But overall, traveling slightly off-season really just makes sense.
We also love secondary cities or quieter areas of major cities. They're usually less crowded, more relaxed, and dramatically less expensive. For example, when we travel to Northern California's wine country, we like staying outside of Napa instead of directly in Napa. You're going to need to drive or be driven to the wineries anyway, so why stay in Napa for $500 a night or more when you could stay almost anywhere else in wine country for less than half that, sometimes a lot less than half that? Now, Santa Rosa is in Sonoma County. Sonoma County, in addition to being a relatively short drive from Napa County, has its own wonderful wineries. Santa Rosa itself also has lots of really good local restaurants to grab a bite for dinner at the end of your day.
Now, another example is when one of my friends and I decided to plan a girls' trip to Napa. We had enrolled in a cooking class, and we also wanted to walk around downtown Napa because it's really cute. But the hotels were so expensive, but we booked a hotel just 9 miles away in American Canyon and paid a quarter of the price.
We've been to New York many times and stayed in hotels throughout Manhattan. We realized we prefer staying on the east side instead of Midtown or Times Square. And that's because we enjoy the local neighborhood restaurants that are all over the much more residential east side of Manhattan. And we're still walking distance to the theater district, and the hotels are usually much less expensive. Comparable hotels are usually much less expensive on the east side than they are in either Midtown or Times Square. And we also like exploring cities that most tourists overlook.
And sometimes the savings are enormous internationally. South America is a great example. As you know, we've been to both Europe and South America. Europe is wonderful. But South America also has incredible food, architecture, cultural experiences, wonderful sights to see at a fraction of the cost. And if you want the best of both worlds, Go to Buenos Aires. Over 60% of Argentinians are of Italian descent, and the city's founders used Paris as an inspiration for the architecture. You'll feel like you're in Europe, but you're not. And the prices and lack of crowds sure show it.
One of the things that really surprised me about Buenos Aires, everybody there says ciao. It's absolutely very Italian feeling and very European feeling. Now, we also don't treat every expense equally. Before we book anything, we decide where we're willing to spend more and where we're not. We'll often spend more for comfort on a long flight, or to keep our carry-on bags with us, or for a hotel location that simplifies transportation or gives us access to great local restaurants or something else that we value for that trip. But otherwise, on shorter flights, we're fine in economy.
And sometimes spending a little bit more up front actually saves you money overall. So in Seoul, Korea, for instance, we stayed at the Plaza Hotel. Now, the rooms there were a little bit more expensive than comparable rooms. However, because we were staying there, we were able to take the airport limo bus from the airport, which dropped us directly at our hotel late at night, which meant we didn't have to take a cab. And we were in walking distance to many great restaurants that were more affordable than the areas where other hotels were. So even though it was a little bit more upfront, we saved overall.
One thing we've learned over the years is that flexibility often creates the best travel experiences. You don't need to schedule every minute.
One of our favorite days in Paris happened almost by accident. It started when a friend took us out for breakfast at his favorite local cafe. Afterward, he asked if we had a little bit of extra time because he wanted to show us a park that he loved. He did, and the park was beautiful. And after we said au revoir to our friend, we wandered into a neighborhood that we wanted to explore, discovered a museum that we hadn't planned on visiting, and the entire day became one of our favorite memories from that trip to Paris. And almost none of it had been scheduled in advance.
Right, just the breakfast with our friend. Because we intentionally built flexibility into the trip, we could enjoy opportunities as they happened instead of rushing from one thing to another. Planning well isn't about controlling every minute. It's about reducing unnecessary stress. Poor planning often creates wasted time, transportation issues, missed reservations, and unnecessary costs. So we try to group activities geographically and create realistic daily schedules.
That way we have structure without overloading ourselves. And especially as travelers over 50, we found that realistic pacing makes trips dramatically more enjoyable.
One thing we've learned over the years is that smart travel planning actually creates more freedom, not less.
And honestly, some of our best travel memories came from things we never planned at all. We discovered an amazing artisan shop in Sedona, Arizona. We unexpectedly saw a wedding at a park in Korea. And we've changed plans because a local told us about something that was better.
That's why we try to plan trips that are flexible enough to let those moments happen.
We'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's the best travel decision you've made that's saved money without hurting the experience?
Or maybe a destination that surprised you because it was much more affordable or much better than you expected. Or maybe both.
In our other videos, we talk about finding great local food while traveling, planning transportation strategically, and deciding whether premium upgrades are actually really worth it.
Because great travel isn't really about how much you spend, it's about how intentionally you plan your flexibility.
Now, if you found this helpful, please like our video and subscribe to our channel and check out our other videos. They're all designed to help make life easier, smarter, and more enjoyable once you're older than 50 years old. Better living starts now. See you next time.